Blood doesn't wash off easily, especially when it belongs to someone you couldn't save. Lena Carter learned that truth at 26, her hands still shaking from her last patient's final breath. What she didn't know was that the man watching her from across that empty Chicago waiting room had more blood on his hands than she'd ever see in a lifetime of nursing. Victor Salazar didn't do mercy, he didn't do kindness. But when their eyes met at 3 a.m., in that fluorescent hell, something cracked in both of them. Stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city. I want to see how far this story travels. The waiting room smelled like disinfectant and defeat. Lena pressed her spine against the plastic chair, every vertebra screaming. 16 hours. 2 codes. 1 death she'd carry home in her chest like broken glass. Her scrubs had someone else's coffee spilled down the front. She couldn't remember whose, couldn't remember when. The hospital's night shift had chewed her up and spit her out, and her relief had called in sick, so she'd stayed for another 8 hours because what else do you do when people are dying and you're the only one who knows where the crash cart is? Her phone was dead. Her car was in the shop. Her roommate wasn't answering, which meant Lena was walking home. Again. Through neighborhoods that got worse the closer you got to her apartment, she closed her eyes. Just 5 minutes. That's all she needed. You look half dead. The voice cut through her fog, low, textured, with an accent that suggested somewhere warmer than Chicago. Lena's eyes snapped open. The man standing 3 feet away didn't belong here. That was her first thought. Everything about him was wrong for this place. The tailored black coat that probably cost more than her monthly rent, the silver watch catching the ugly fluorescent light, the way he stood like he owned not just the room, but the entire building and maybe the block outside. He was maybe 40, maybe older. Dark hair swept back, slight gray at the temples. Strong jaw, stronger eyes. The kind of face that made you look twice, not because it was handsome, though it was, but because it demanded attention. I'm fine, Lena said automatically, the lie every nurse tells. No, you're not. He moved closer, and she caught the scent of expensive cologne and something else. Danger, maybe, if danger had a smell. When's the last time you ate? That's not really your business. When's the last time you slept? Lena stood up too fast. The room tilted. Her vision went sparkly at the edges, and she grabbed for the chair back, missed, felt her knees unlock. He caught her. 1 second she was falling, the next she was against his chest, his arms locked around her like steel cables wrapped in cashmere. He held her weight easily, like she was nothing. Easy, he said, and his voice had changed, gone softer. I've got you. Lena should have pulled away, should have thanked him politely and sat back down, should have done literally anything except what she did, which was press her face into his coat and breathe. God, when was the last time someone had just held her? Don't let go, she whispered. She felt him go still, then his arms tightened fractionally. Okay, he said. They stood like that for a small eternity. The waiting room stayed empty. Somewhere down the hall, a monitor beeped. A door closed. The world kept spinning, but right here, right now, Lena felt still for the first time in months. Finally, she found the strength to step back. Her cheeks burned. I'm sorry, that was... Don't. He studied her face like he was memorizing it. What's your name? Lena Carter. Victor? He didn't offer a last name. You need food. When do you get off? I'm off now, my ride fell through. Something shifted in his expression. Where do you live? She almost laughed. You don't want to know. Humor me. Lena rattled off her address, watched his jaw tighten. That's a 40-minute walk through 3 territories. He said it like she should know what that meant. At 4 a.m. I've done it before. Not tonight. It wasn't a question. He pulled out his phone, typed something. My car's outside. I'll take you home. I don't get in cars with strangers who... Victor Salazar. He said his full name like he was testing her, waiting for recognition. Lena blinked. Am I supposed to know who you are? For the first time, something like amusement crossed his face. No, but you should probably be more careful about whose chest you cry on. I wasn't crying. Close enough. His phone buzzed. Car's here. Come on. Every instinct Lena had learned growing up in Chicago told her to say no. Rich men didn't offer rides to broke nurses at 4 a.m. because they were kind. They wanted something. They always wanted something. But she was so tired, and he'd held her like she mattered. And the thought of walking home through those dark streets made something in her chest contract with dread. "Just a ride home," she said. "Just a ride home," Victor agreed. The car was a black Mercedes with windows so tinted she couldn't see inside. A man in a suit opened the back door, actual driver, not Uber, and Victor gestured for Lena to slide in first. The interior smelled like leather and money. Lena sank into seats softer than her bed and felt her body start to give up. All the adrenaline that had kept her upright for 16 hours suddenly draining away. Victor slid in beside her, gave the driver her address. "That neighborhood," the driver said carefully. "I know." Victor's tone closed the subject. They pulled into traffic. Chicago at 4 a.m. was a different animal than Chicago during the day. Darker, sharper, honest about what it was. Lena watched the city slide past, familiar streets looking strange from inside this cocoon of wealth. "Why were you at the hospital?" she asked. Victor was quiet for a moment. "Business associate. Heart attack." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. He'll live." He shifted, angled toward her. "How long have you been a nurse?" 4 years. How did you—" The scrubs gave it away. Almost a smile. "You're good at it?" "I don't know. I'm still here, so I haven't killed anyone yet." "That's not what I asked." Lena looked at him properly. In the dim light from passing street lamps, his face was all shadows and angles. "Yeah, I'm good at it. I'm good at keeping people alive when they're trying really hard to die." "Important skill. You'd be surprised how often it doesn't matter." She heard the bitterness in her own voice. "Did everything right tonight. Textbook code. Guy still died. That happens in my line of work, too." Something dark crossed his face. "You do everything right. They still die." "What do you do?" "Import-export." The lie was smooth, practiced. "Logistics." Lena almost called him on it, but she was too tired to care. They were getting into her neighborhood now, streets getting narrower, buildings getting shabbier, graffiti replacing advertisements. The driver's shoulders tensed. "It's fine," Victor said quietly. "Keep going." They pulled up in front of Lena's building. It looked worse than usual. Broken window on the second floor still not fixed. Trash piled by the entrance. Suspicious stain on the sidewalk that had been there for weeks. Victor stared at the building like it had personally offended him. "This is where you live." It wasn't a question, but Lena answered anyway. "Rent's cheap." "There's cheap and there's dangerous." "I'm a big girl. I can handle it." She reached for the door handle. Victor's hand shot out, caught her wrist. Not hard, but firm. "Wait." The driver got out, circled the car, opened her door from the outside. Professional. Military precise. Victor stepped out after her, buttoned his coat. "I'll walk you up." "That's really not—" "Lena." He said her name like he was settling an argument. "I'm walking you up." The building's front door hung crooked on its hinges. Someone had broken the lock weeks ago, and the landlord hadn't fixed it. Lena led the way upstairs that creaked with every step, past walls tagged with territorial markers she'd learned not to look at too closely. 3rd floor. Her apartment was at the end of the hall. She got her keys out, fumbled with the lock. Behind her, Victor stood absolutely still, but she could feel him cataloging everything. The broken light fixture, the door across the hall with police tape still on it from last month, the smell of something burning or rotten or both. "Lena." She got the door open, turned. "Thank you for the ride. Really, you didn't have to—" "How much is rent here?" She blinked. "Why?" "How much?" $800. Why does it— "And you're a nurse at Chicago Memorial. Starting salary, what, $58,000? Her spine stiffened. "I don't think my finances are— After taxes, that's about $3,800 a month. Rent, $800. Student loans?" He watched her face. "Thought so. What, $40,000 in debt? Payments are probably $400-500 a month? Then food, utilities, transportation. You're barely breaking even, aren't you? And that's why you work doubles. Why you work until you collapse. Why you live here instead of somewhere with locks that actually work." Lena's hands were shaking. "Get out." "I'm not trying to—" I said get out. Her voice cracked. You don't know me. You don't know my life. You gave me a ride, thank you. Now leave. Victor held up his hand, stepped back, but his eyes stayed on her face. I'm sorry, he said quietly. You're right. That was out of line. He turned, started down the hall. Wait. Lena didn't know why she said it, didn't know what she wanted, what she was asking for, but he'd stopped, was looking back at her, and the words came out before she could stop them. Why do you care? Victor was quiet for a long moment. Then, because I know what it's like, to work yourself to death and still not have enough. To be invisible to everyone who matters. He paused. And because when you asked me to hold you, you looked like I feel. Like you've been drowning for so long you forgot what breathing feels like. Lena's throat tightened. Go inside, Victor said softly. Lock your door. Get some sleep. He walked away. Lena watched until he disappeared down the stairs, then went inside, locked every lock on her door that still worked, and stood in her tiny apartment trying to figure out what the hell just happened. Her phone, now charging, buzzed with a text from an unknown number. If you need anything, and I mean anything, call me. She should delete it, should block the number and forget this whole strange encounter. Instead, she saved it. Lena woke up 12 hours later to someone pounding on her door. She stumbled out of bed, still in yesterday's scrubs, and checked the peephole. A delivery guy stood outside holding bags that smelled like actual food, not the ramen she'd been living on. She opened the door. I didn't order delivery for Lena Carter. He thrust the bags at her, then a coffee cup. Paid in advance. Have a good day. He was gone before she could ask questions. Lena brought everything inside, set it on her tiny kitchen counter. The bags were from a place she'd walked past 100 times but never entered, the kind of restaurant where entrees cost what she made in 3 hours. There was enough food for 3 people: pasta, bread, salad, some kind of chicken that smelled like heaven. And the coffee was still hot, made exactly how she liked it, even though she'd never told anyone. A card was tucked into one bag. Heavy stock, expensive. Just 3 words in bold handwriting. Eat, sleep, live. No signature, didn't need one. Lena's hands shook as she unpacked the food. This was insane. She didn't know this man, didn't know what he wanted, what game he was playing. But she was so hungry, and it smelled so good. And when was the last time someone had cared if she ate? She took one bite of the pasta and nearly cried. Her phone rang. Unknown number, but she knew. Hello? Did it get there? Victor's voice, warm over the line. You can't just... People don't just... Did you eat? Lena looked at the pasta, the bread, the coffee. I'm eating now. Good. Satisfaction in his tone. You work tonight? No, I'm off for 3 days. Perfect. I'm sending a car at 7. What? No, I'm not... Dinner, Lena. Just dinner. You and me. Somewhere nice, somewhere you can sit down and not think about anything except the food. He paused. Please. She should say no, should hang up, should run as far from this man as possible because men like him didn't do nice things without wanting something back, and she couldn't afford whatever price he'd eventually charge. Just dinner? She asked. Just dinner, though I reserve the right to feed you excessively. Despite everything, Lena smiled. I don't have anything to wear to somewhere nice. Yes, you do. Check your front door in about 5 minutes. Victor, 7 o'clock, Lena. Don't make me come get you. He hung up. Lena sat in her kitchen, surrounded by more food than she'd seen in weeks, her phone still warm in her hand. This was crazy. This was how people got hurt, got used, got destroyed. But when the knock came 4.5 minutes later, and she opened the door to find dress boxes from stores she couldn't pronounce, when she opened them and found clothes that fit perfectly in colors that made her skin glow, when she put on the deep blue dress and saw herself look like someone worth saving, she didn't say no. The car arrived at exactly 7. Same driver, same Mercedes, but this time Lena was ready. She'd done her makeup, fixed her hair, wore shoes that actually matched the dress. The driver's eyes widened fractionally when he saw her. Miss Carter, you look lovely. Thank you. Lena slid into the back seat, her heart hammering. They drove north into neighborhoods where the buildings got taller and the people got richer. The restaurant was in a part of Chicago Lena had only ever seen on TV. Old money, old power, the kind of place where reservations required knowing someone who knew someone. The driver opened her door. "He's waiting inside." Lena stepped out onto the sidewalk, feeling like an imposter in her expensive dress and borrowed confidence. The restaurant's entrance was subtle. Just a door, a small sign, a man in a suit who opened it as she approached. Inside was warm, intimate, low lighting, soft music, tables far enough apart for privacy. And there, at a corner table with a view of the city, was Victor. He stood when he saw her. He'd changed too. Dark suit, crisp shirt, no tie. He looked like money and danger wrapped in perfect tailoring. "Lena?" Her name in his mouth sounded different, important. "You're stunning." "You're crazy," she said, but she was smiling. "This is all crazy." "Probably." He pulled out her chair. "But let's be crazy together for a few hours." She sat. He sat across from her. A waiter appeared with water, wine, menus that had no prices. "Order anything," Victor said. "Everything. I want you to remember what it feels like to not worry about the check." "Victor, I can't." "You can." His eyes locked on hers. "For tonight, just let me take care of you. No strings, no expectations. Just food and conversation, and maybe, if I'm lucky, I get to see you smile a few more times." "Why?" Lena leaned forward. "Why are you doing this?" Victor was quiet for a moment, turning his wine glass. "Honest answer, please." "Because when you fell, when you asked me to hold you, you trusted me. Complete stranger, and you trusted me with your vulnerability. Nobody's done that in longer than I can remember." He met her eyes. "And because I look at you and see someone who gives everything to save other people and nothing's left for yourself. Someone drowning in a world that doesn't care. And I know what that's like. I know what it does to you, and I thought, maybe I could give you one night where you're not drowning. One night where someone takes care of you instead of the other way around." Lena's chest tightened. "You don't know me." "No, but I'd like to." The waiter returned. Victor ordered for both of them. Appetizers, entrees, sides, dessert planned in advance. He knew food like someone who'd studied it, knew wine like someone who could afford to care. The food came in waves. Each course better than the last. Lena ate until she was full, then kept eating because it was too good to stop. Between courses, they talked. "Tell me about nursing," Victor said. So she did. Told him about her first code, her first save, the patient who'd hugged her after a double bypass. Told him about the bureaucracy, the insurance nightmares, the way healthcare chewed up the people trying to fix it. "You love it, though," Victor said. "Even with all that, you love it." "How do you know?" "The way your face changes when you talk about saving someone. Like it's the only thing that matters." "What do you love?" Lena asked. "What do you do when you're not doing logistics?" Victor's smile was sharp. "I solve problems. People come to me when they have situations they can't handle themselves, and I handle them." "What kind of situations?" "The complicated kind." He leaned back. "The kind where there's no good answer, just less bad ones. Where someone has to make the hard call and live with the consequences." "Sounds lonely." "It is." He said it simply, like stating a fact. "Most people in my life want something: protection, money, power, access. They smile and they bow, and they'd put a knife in my back the second it benefited them." He paused. "You're the first person in years who looked at me and didn't see a tool or a threat, just a man." "Is that what you are?" Lena asked softly. "Just a man?" "Tonight, yes." His eyes held hers on, "Tonight I'm just Victor, having dinner with the most interesting woman I've met in a decade." Her breath caught. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of good food and better conversation. Victor was smart, sharp, funny in a dry way that caught her off guard. He listened when she talked, really listened, like every word mattered, asked questions that showed he was paying attention. By the time dessert came, some chocolate thing that should have been illegal, Lena had forgotten to be nervous. "I should probably go home," she said, not wanting to. "Probably," Victor agreed. Or you could let me show you the city, the parts you've never seen, the parts most people don't know exist." Lena knew this was the moment. Say yes, and this thing between them, whatever it was, became something real. Say no, thank him for dinner, go back to her life, safe or sorry, drowning or breathing. Show me, she said. Victor's smile could have lit the whole city. They drove through Chicago like it was a private showing. Victor pointed out buildings he owned, restaurants he'd saved from closing, corners where deals had been made that changed the city's power structure. You talk about Chicago like it's yours, Lena said. Parts of it are. No arrogance, just fact. Every city has people who run things from behind the scenes. I'm one of them. And what does that make you, a politician? Something like that. He smiled, without the pretense of caring about votes. They ended up at the lake, lakefront property worth millions, not another soul around. Victor's driver stayed with the car while they walked along the water. How did you end up in nursing? Victor asked. My mom got sick when I was 50, Lena said, the words coming easier than expected. Cancer. The nurses at her hospital were the only ones who treated her like a person instead of a case number. They held her hand, stayed late, made her laugh even when she was dying. She swallowed hard. I thought if I became a nurse, maybe I could be that for someone else. Maybe I could be the reason someone's last days didn't completely suck. Did she? She died when I was 17. Lena stared out at the dark water. 2 weeks before graduation, I used her life insurance to pay for nursing school. Victor was quiet for a moment. Then, she'd be proud of you. Would she? Lena laughed bitterly. I'm broke, exhausted, living in a place that should be condemned. Some success story. You saved lives. Victor's voice went hard. Every day you save lives. You give people second chances, more time with their families, more time to fix their mistakes. You have no idea how valuable that is, how rare. Lena turned to look at him. In the moonlight, his face was different, younger somehow, more vulnerable. You sound like someone who wishes they could do the same. I take lives, Victor said quietly. It's what I'm good at, what I've built my world on. You give second chances. I end them. He met her eyes. So yes, I think what you do is the most valuable thing in the world. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. You're not in logistics, are you? Lena asked. No. Are you going to tell me what you really do? Not tonight. Victor stepped closer. Tonight, I'm just a man who can't stop thinking about the woman who fell into his arms and asked him to hold her. The woman who looked at him like he was human. The woman who makes him want to be better than he is. Lena's pulse hammered. Victor, I know this is fast. I know you barely know me. I know a smart woman would run from this. From me. His hand came up, cupped her cheek. But I haven't felt this alive in years, and I think maybe you feel it too. She did. Against all logic, all common sense, she felt it. This pull, this connection, this sense that she'd found something she hadn't known she was looking for. This is insane, she whispered. Completely. I should go home. Probably. Neither of them moved. Then Victor leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away, and kissed her. It wasn't soft or sweet or gentle. It was desperate, hungry, the kiss of two people who'd been alone too long and found each other in the dark. Lena's hands fisted in his coat, pulling him closer, and he wrapped his arms around her like he was trying to absorb her into his skin. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Victor rested his forehead against hers. Stay with me tonight, he said. Not for sex. Not for anything except not being alone. Just stay. Lena should have said no. Should have been smart, been safe, protected herself. But she was so tired of being alone. Okay, she whispered. Victor's penthouse was everything Lena expected and nothing like it. Yes, it was massive, expensive, filled with art and antiques, but it also felt lived in, books scattered on tables, a coffee cup in the sink, a blanket thrown over the couch like someone actually used it. Guest room's down the hall, Victor said, shrugging out of his coat. But there's also my room, if you want company. Just sleeping? Lena asked. Just sleeping. He smiled slightly. Though I should warn you, I'm told I snore. I worked a double shift yesterday. You could run a chainsaw and I'd sleep through it. They ended up in his room, massive bed big enough for 4 people. Victor gave her clothes to sleep in, one of his shirts, soft pants with a drawstring. Lena changed in the bathroom, stared at herself in the mirror. What was she doing? When she came out, Victor was already in bed, covers pulled back on her side. He'd changed too, simple t-shirt and pants. Without the suit, he looked more human, more real. Lena slid into bed beside him. The sheets were softer than anything she'd ever felt. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For tonight. For all of it. Thank you for saying yes." Victor turned on his side to face her. "Can I ask you something?" "Okay." "When was the last time someone took care of you? Not professionally, not at the hospital, just someone making sure you were okay." Lena thought about it. Thought about her roommate who was barely around, her coworkers who were as exhausted as she was, the family she didn't have anymore. "I can't remember," she admitted. Victor's jaw tightened. "That changes now. You can't just watch me." He reached out slowly, giving her time to refuse, and pulled her closer. "Go to sleep, Lena. I've got you." She should have argued, should have maintained boundaries, should have protected herself from whatever this was becoming. Instead, she let him hold her, let herself feel safe for the first time in years, and fell asleep to the sound of his heartbeat. Lena woke up to sunlight and the smell of coffee. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then it came back. Victor, the dinner, the kiss, the decision to stay. She sat up. Victor's side of the bed was empty but still warm. Voices drifted from somewhere else in the penthouse. Lena found her way to the kitchen by following the coffee smell. Victor stood at the counter in different clothes, jeans, black shirt, talking on the phone in Spanish. His voice had changed, gone colder, harder. He saw her, held up one finger, finished the conversation with something sharp and final, then hung up. "Morning?" His expression shifted, warmed. "Coffee?" "Please." Lena accepted the cup he poured, added cream. "Everything okay?" "Work stuff, nothing important." He studied her face. "How'd you sleep?" "Better than I have in months." It was true. "You?" "Same." He moved closer. "I have to handle some things today, but I don't want you going back to that apartment." "Victor, stay here. One more day. Let me take care of lunch, dinner, whatever you need." He caught her hand. "Please. I can't just move into your penthouse." "Why not?" "Because we met 2 days ago and this is crazy, and I don't even know your last name. Wait, I do know your last name, Salazar, but I don't know anything real about you except that you kiss like you're trying to prove something and you hold me like I might disappear if you let go." Victor was quiet for a long moment. Then, "What do you want to know?" "Everything. The truth. Not the logistics story, not the careful answers. If I'm going to trust you, if I'm going to keep feeling what I feel when you look at me, I need to know who you really are." He set down his coffee cup. "Okay, but not here. Come with me." They drove south, into neighborhoods that got rougher with every mile. The driver took them to a warehouse district, all concrete and broken windows. They parked outside a building that looked abandoned. Inside was anything but. The warehouse had been converted into something else. Offices, storage, what looked like a legitimate shipping business. People worked at desks, moved boxes, talked on phones. They all stopped when Victor walked in, offered respectful nods. One man approached, older, scarred, dangerous looking. "Boss, we weren't expecting you." "Marco." Victor's voice had that cold edge again. "This is Lena. She's with me. Anything she needs, she gets. Understood?" Marco's eyes flicked to Lena, assessment quick and thorough. "Understood." They walked through the warehouse. Lena saw things that didn't quite add up. Security too tight for shipping, men with bulges under their jackets that weren't phones, a room with monitors showing camera feeds from across the city. Victor led her to an office at the back, closed the door behind them. "This is what I do," he said, "what I really do. I run most of the South Side, protection, distribution, conflict resolution. Some of it's legal, most of it isn't." He watched her face carefully. "I'm what people call a crime boss. though I prefer to think of myself as a businessman who operates outside traditional regulatory frameworks. Lena sat down slowly. You're a gangster. That's the less flattering term, but yes. And last night, the dinner, all real. Victor crouched in front of her chair. Everything I said, everything I felt, completely real. This part of my life doesn't change that. If anything, it makes it matter more. You're the first person in years who looked at me and didn't see this first, who saw me as human before criminal. People work for you. Yes. People depend on you. Yes. Have you killed people? Victor didn't look away. Yes. Lena's hands shook. I should leave. Probably. He didn't move. But I'm hoping you won't. I'm hoping what you feel when I hold you matters more than what I do when you're not around. I'm hoping that maybe, possibly, you can see that I'm trying to be better. That meeting you makes me want to be better. Victor, I can keep you safe, he said urgently. Safer than you've ever been. That apartment, those debts, working yourself to death, all of it ends. Let me take care of you. Let me give you the life you deserve. No strings, no price. Just let me do this. Why? Lena's voice cracked. Why me? Because when you fell into my arms, for the first time in 20 years, I felt something besides anger and emptiness. Because you make me laugh. Because you save lives and I take them, and maybe, together, we balance out. Because I'm falling for you so fast it terrifies me, and I haven't been scared of anything since I was 17 years old. Lena stared at him. This beautiful, dangerous man on his knees in front of her, offering her everything, asking for nothing except permission to care. This was insane. This was dangerous. This was everything her rational brain said to run from. But when had her rational brain ever done anything except keep her safe and miserable? One condition, she said finally. Victor's eyes lit with hope. Anything. I keep working. I'm still a nurse. You don't get to take that from me. Done. Anything else? You have to be honest with me. Always. I can handle dangerous. I can handle criminal. I can't handle lies. Deal. He stood, pulled her up with him. Anything else? Lena looked up at him, this man who'd crashed into her life and turned everything upside down. Kiss me again. He did. And this time, when his arms wrapped around her, when his mouth claimed hers, she kissed him back like she was fighting for her life. Because maybe she was. Maybe they both were. The next 3 weeks rewrote Lena's understanding of what her life could be. Victor moved her out of that apartment the same day she agreed to let him help. Didn't ask permission, just sent people who packed her things with military efficiency while she was at work. When she came home from her shift, exhausted and annoyed that he'd gone behind her back, he was waiting outside the building with keys to a new place. You can't just... Already done. He dangled the keys. Come see it before you yell at me. The apartment was in a building with actual security. Doorman, cameras, locks that worked. 3rd floor, corner unit. Windows that let in real sunlight. 2 bedrooms, updated kitchen, bathroom that didn't have suspicious stains. Lena walked through it in silence, touching counters that weren't cracked, opening cabinets that closed properly, staring at a bed that wasn't secondhand. It's too much, she said finally. It's safe. Victor leaned against the doorframe. That's all that matters. Victor, I can't afford... You're not paying for it. I am. That's not how this works. I'm not some kept woman who... You're a woman I care about who was living in a place that wasn't fit for rats. His voice went hard. You want to pay me back? Fine. Take the money you were spending on that dump and put it toward your loans. Or save it, or burn it. I don't care. But you're not going back there. They stared at each other across the empty living room. Lena knew she should fight this, should maintain her independence, should prove she didn't need saving. But the apartment had hot water that didn't run out, and windows that locked, and she was so damn tired of being scared every time she walked through her own front door. Thank you, she said quietly. Victor's expression softened. You're welcome. He'd left her alone that night to settle in, though she found the refrigerator fully stocked and the closets filled with clothes that fit perfectly. The next morning, there were flowers on the counter with a note. Dinner tonight? That became their pattern. Lena worked her shifts, came home to her safe apartment, and every few days Victor would appear with food or plans or just himself. They'd have dinner, talk for hours, and somehow she'd end up falling asleep against his chest on the couch while he played with her hair. He never pushed for more, never demanded anything, just held her like she was something precious and asked about her day like it mattered. At work, Lena started noticing changes. The hospital's administration suddenly approved the new equipment her unit had been requesting for months. Her student loan company called to say her debt had been paid in full by an anonymous donor. Her car, still in the shop, was returned fully repaired with a note saying the charges had been covered. "Victor," she said when he picked her up after a particularly brutal shift, "you have to stop." "Stop what?" "You know what. The loans, the car, whatever you did at the hospital, I made a donation." He said it casually. "Hospitals need funding. I had extra. Where's the problem?" "The problem is, I can't accept all this. It's too much. It makes me feel like what?" He pulled the car over, turned to face her. "Like someone cares about you? Like you matter? Like you deserve good things? Like I owe you?" Victor's jaw tightened. "You don't owe me anything, Lena. Not one damn thing. I do this because watching you work yourself to death makes me want to burn the whole system down. Because you spend all day saving other people and nobody saves you. Because I can fix these problems with a phone call and some money, and it costs me nothing, but it changes your entire life." He caught her hand. "Let me do this. Please." "Why?" Her voice cracked. "Why do you care so much?" "Because I'm in love with you," Victor said simply. "Have been since you fell into my arms and trusted me enough to ask me to stay. And I know it's fast and I know it's crazy, but I don't care. You're the best thing that's happened to me in 20 years, and I'm not letting you drown when I have the power to pull you out." Lena's breath caught. "You can't just... We barely know each other. I know you take your coffee with too much cream and not enough sugar. I know you cry during codes when you think nobody's watching. I know you work doubles because you're scared of not having enough, even though you run yourself into the ground doing it. I know you make terrible jokes when you're nervous, and you bite your lip when you're thinking, and you look at me like I'm more than just the violence I do for a living." His thumb traced her knuckles. "What else do I need to know?" Everything, Lena thought, and nothing. Because he was right. He saw her in ways nobody else ever had. Saw past the scrubs and the exhaustion to the person underneath who was barely holding it together. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "How to be with someone like you. How to fit into your world." "You don't fit into my world. You make me want to leave it." Victor pulled her closer. "Stay with me tonight. Not at your place, at mine. I'll make dinner, we'll watch bad movies, and I'll hold you until you fall asleep. No pressure, no expectations. Just us." Lena knew what this was. The slow slide from independence into dependence, from her life into his. The smart move was to pump the brakes, establish boundaries, protect herself. But she was falling too, falling hard and fast for this dangerous man who looked at her like she hung the moon. "Okay," she said. That night became a week. Then two. Lena kept her apartment but spent most nights at Victor's penthouse, wrapped in his arms, learning the geography of his body through touch instead of sight. They still hadn't slept together, not really, just held each other, kissed until they couldn't breathe, then pulled back before it went further. "Why?" Lena asked one night, straddling his lap on the couch, both of them breathing hard. "Why do you always stop?" Victor's hands tightened on her hips. "Because when we do this, I want you to be sure. Not caught up in the moment, not grateful for what I've done. Sure that you want me, all of me, including the parts that scare you." "You don't scare me." "Liar." He smiled slightly. "I terrify you, and I should. Because once we cross this line, you're mine, and I don't share, I don't do casual, I don't let go." His eyes locked on hers. "So when you're ready for that, when you're ready for me to claim every part of you, you tell me. Until then, I can wait." Lena's heart hammered. "And if I'm ready now?" Something dangerous flashed across his face. "Are you?" Was she? Ready to give herself to a man who killed people for a living? Ready to tie her life to someone whose enemies could use her as leverage? Ready to love someone who'd admitted he'd never let her go once he had her? "Not yet," she whispered, "but soon." "Soon works." Victor kissed her forehead. I'm a patient man when it matters. But the world had other plans. It started small. Looks from strangers when she was with Victor, cars that seemed to follow her home from work, a feeling of being watched that she couldn't shake. Then Marco showed up at the hospital. Lena was coming off shift, dead on her feet, when she found him waiting by her car. Up close, he was even more intimidating, tall, built like violence, scars that told stories she didn't want to know. "Miss Carter?" He nodded politely. "Boss asked me to drive you home." "I have my car. I'll have someone bring it by later. Not a request. Please." Something in his tone made Lena's stomach drop. "What happened? Is Victor okay?" "He's fine. But we need to get you somewhere safe." The drive to Victor's warehouse was silent. Marco wouldn't answer questions, just drove with the kind of focus that suggested he was expecting trouble. They pulled into an underground garage Lena hadn't known existed, took an elevator that required a key card. Victor was waiting when the doors opened. He looked different, harder, colder, the version of himself she'd glimpsed in phone conversations but never seen directed at her, until he saw her. Then his expression cracked. "Are you hurt?" He grabbed her shoulders, eyes scanning her for damage. "I'm fine. Marco wouldn't tell me what—" "Someone's asking about you." Victor's hands tightened. "Someone dangerous. Someone who shouldn't know you exist." Lena's blood went cold. "Who?" "Dmitry Volkov." The name came out like a curse. "He runs the north side. We have an understanding. He stays in his territory, I stay in mine. But he's been pushing boundaries lately, and now he knows about you." "How?" "You've been seen with me, multiple times, in public." Victor's jaw clenched. "I should have been more careful, should have kept you separate from this part of my life. But I wanted—" He broke off, shook his head. "Doesn't matter what I wanted, you're exposed now." "So what does that mean?" "It means you can't go home, can't go to work, can't be anywhere predictable until I handle this." He cupped her face. "I'm so sorry, Lena. I brought this into your life. I made you a target." The fear in his eyes was real, raw. This man who commanded an empire, who people feared, was scared for her. "What are you going to do?" Lena asked. "Whatever I have to." The coldness returned. "Dmitry made a mistake by threatening what's mine. I'm going to make sure he understands that." "Victor, stay here." He kissed her hard, desperately. "Marco and his team will keep you safe. I'll be back as soon as I can." He was gone before she could argue. The next 12 hours were the longest of Lena's life. Marco and two other men, both armed, both silent, stood guard while she paced the warehouse office. Her phone had no signal. The windows were bulletproof. She was safe and trapped and terrified. Around midnight, Marco's radio crackled. He listened, face impassive, then turned to Lena. "It's done." "What's done? Is Victor—" "He's fine. On his way back. Should be here in 20. Lena sank into a chair, hands shaking. "What did he do?" Marco's expression suggested she didn't want to know. "He did what needed doing." Victor returned an hour later. His suit was different. He'd changed somewhere. His knuckles were bruised. There was blood on his collar that he'd missed. "Come here," he said quietly. Lena crossed to him. He pulled her into his arms, buried his face in her hair, and just breathed. "Is it over?" she asked against his chest. "For now. Dmitry and I came to an understanding. You're off limits, completely. Anyone who touches you dies, anyone who threatens you dies, anyone who even looks at you wrong dies." He pulled back to meet her eyes. "I made that very clear." "How?" "You don't want to know." "Tell me anyway." Victor studied her face for a long moment. Then, "I killed 3 of his men, put 2 more in the hospital, burned down one of his warehouses, and I made him watch while I did it, so he'd understand that touching you means war. A war he can't win." Lena should have been horrified, should have pulled away from this man who admitted to murder like he was discussing the weather. Instead, she kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It was fierce, claiming, a kiss that said, "I see what you are, and I'm staying anyway." Victor made a sound low in his throat and kissed her back like he was drowning and she was air. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Lena said, "Take me home." You're home. And don't stop this time. Lena, I'm sure. She grabbed his shirt. I'm terrified and furious and so damn tired of pretending I don't want this. Want you, all of you, including the parts that just killed for me. Victor's eyes went dark. You understand what you're saying? I'm saying I'm yours, if you'll have me. If I'll... He laughed, sharp and disbelieving. Lena, I've been yours since the moment you asked me to hold you. The question is whether you can handle being mine. Try me. They barely made it to the penthouse, barely made it through the door. Victor had her against the wall before her coat hit the floor, his mouth on hers, hands everywhere. Last chance, he growled against her lips, because once I have you, I'm not letting go, ever. Good, Lena gasped. Don't. He carried her to the bedroom, laid her down like she was something sacred, stood over her, eyes burning. You're everything, he said roughly. Everything I didn't know I needed, everything I don't deserve. Then take me anyway. He did. And it wasn't gentle or easy or perfect. It was desperate and raw and real. Two people who'd been alone too long finally finding each other in the dark. Victor worshipped her body like he was memorizing it, touched her like she might disappear, made love to her like it was the only thing that mattered. After, they lay tangled together, hearts still racing. Victor's fingers traced patterns on her skin. I love you, he said quietly, in case that wasn't clear. Lena turned to face him. I love you too, even though you're crazy, even though this is crazy, even though loving you means living in your world and everything that comes with it. I'll keep you safe. His arms tightened. Whatever it takes, whoever I have to destroy. You're mine now, and I protect what's mine. I know. She kissed his jaw. That's what scares me. Not what you'll do to protect me, but what I'll do to protect you. Victor went still. What does that mean? It means I'm a nurse. I save lives. But if someone tried to hurt you... She met his eyes. I'd kill them, without hesitation, without regret. And that terrifies me more than anything in your world ever could. Something shifted in his expression. Pride, maybe. Understanding, definitely. We're quite a pair, he murmured. The nurse and the killer, destroying the world for each other. Guess so. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, two broken people who'd found something whole in the spaces between. Lena woke to sunlight and the smell of coffee. Again. But this time felt different, heavier, more real. She'd crossed a line last night that she couldn't uncross. She'd chosen Victor's world, chosen him. No going back now. She found him in the kitchen, shirtless, making breakfast. Bruises darkened his ribs that she hadn't seen in the dark. Scars crossed his back, old ones, stories written in scar tissue. You're staring, Victor said without turning around. You're covered in damage. Occupational hazard. He turned, handed her coffee. You okay? Are you? Better than I've been in years. He pulled her close. How do you feel about taking some time off work? Lena stiffened. We talked about this. I keep my job. I know, but Dmitri backed off for now. That doesn't mean his people won't try something if they see an opening. And you at the hospital, same schedule every week, predictable routes. He shook his head. You're vulnerable. I need you somewhere I can protect you until things settle. For how long? A week, maybe 2. His thumb traced her cheekbone. I know it's asking a lot, but I can't do my job if I'm worried about you getting hurt because of me. Lena wanted to argue, wanted to insist on her independence, her right to live her life, but the fear in his eyes was real, and she'd seen what he'd done to protect her. 3 men dead, warehouse burned, all because someone had threatened her. 1 week, she said finally. I'll call in, take the vacation time I've been hoarding, but after that I go back. Deal? Deal. Relief crossed his face. Thank you. That week became a strange kind of honeymoon. Victor cleared his schedule as much as possible, spent his days showing her parts of Chicago she'd never seen. They had dinner at restaurants that didn't have menus, walked through neighborhoods where everyone knew Victor's name and stepped aside respectfully. He introduced her to people carefully. His accountant, his lawyer, a few trusted lieutenants, each one understanding without being told that Lena was off limits. You're expanding my territory, she joked one night. I'm showing off, Victor corrected. I have this beautiful, brilliant woman who inexplicably loves me. Of course I'm showing off. But underneath the romance was violence. Phone calls Victor took in another room, conversations in Spanish that ended with sharp commands, Marco appearing with reports that made Victor's expression go cold. Lena learned not to ask, learned to recognize when he needed space to handle things she didn't want to know about. One night, he came home with blood on his shirt that wasn't his. Don't, he said when she opened her mouth. Don't ask. Just come here. She held him while he showered, washed the violence away, came back to her clean but haunted. They made love slowly this time, tenderly, Victor touching her like she was the only good thing in his world. Maybe she was. The week ended. Lena went back to work with a security detail she pretended not to notice. Marco's people, rotating shifts, always watching. Her coworkers asked about her time off. She smiled and lied, said she'd needed a break, felt better now. Nobody mentioned the expensive car that dropped her off, or the way the hospital's most persistent problems seemed to solve themselves overnight. 3 weeks in, Lena came home from a shift to find Victor waiting in her apartment. Their apartment now. He'd moved in gradually, leaving clothes and toiletries until half the space was his. We need to talk, he said. Her stomach dropped. That's never good. Sit down. She sat. Victor paced, jaw tight, hands flexing like he wanted to hit something. Dimitri's dead, he said finally. Lena blinked. What? Someone killed him last night, made it look like a rival hit. But it wasn't. Victor turned to face her. It was a setup. Someone wanted him gone and wanted me to take the fall for it. Who? That's the problem. I don't know. But whoever it is knows about you, knows about us, and is smart enough to frame me for murder. His eyes met hers. This is bigger than I thought, more dangerous. And you're right in the middle of it. So what do we do? I'm going to find who did this and end them. But Lena... He crossed to her, took her hands. It's going to get messy, dangerous. People are going to die, and I need to know you can handle that. Handle me doing what I do, because I can't protect you and hide what I am at the same time. Lena thought about the last month. The violence she'd ignored, the blood she'd pretended not to see, the way she'd let herself believe they could have something normal in the middle of his world. That was done now. This was real. This was the cost of loving Victor Salazar. I can handle it, she said. Whatever you need to do, I can handle it. Just, her voice broke. Just come back to me. Always come back. Always. He pulled her into his arms. You're my reason, Lena. The thing I'm fighting for. I'll always come back. They held each other as night fell on Chicago, two people against a world that wanted to tear them apart. Lena closed her eyes and tried not to think about what was coming, tried not to imagine losing him to the violence he lived in. But deep down, she knew. The worst was still ahead, and when it came, it would test everything they'd built. The question was whether they'd survive it. The call came at 2 a.m. Lena jerked awake to Victor's phone vibrating on the nightstand, his arm already reaching for it before his eyes were fully open. That was new, the way he slept lighter now, ready for violence, even in dreams. What? Not a question, a command. She watched his face change, watched the warmth drain out until he was all sharp edges and cold calculation. When? Pause. How many? Another pause, longer this time. His jaw clenched. I'm on my way. He was out of bed before he hung up, pulling on clothes with practiced efficiency. What happened? Lena asked, though part of her didn't want to know. One of my warehouses got hit, the one on Archer Avenue. He strapped on a shoulder holster she'd only seen twice before. 4 of my men are dead, 2 missing. Missing. Taken. Victor's voice could have cut glass. Someone's sending a message. I need to go send one back. Lena threw off the covers. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. Victor, no. He rounded on her. This isn't a discussion. You stay here where it's safe. Marco's outside. I'm a trauma nurse, Lena cut him off. You said 2 men are missing. If you find them, if they're hurt, I can help. You need me. I need you alive. He crossed to her, gripped her shoulders. Lena, whoever did this wanted me to see it. Wanted me to come looking. This could be a trap. Then you definitely need a nurse. They stared at each other, wills colliding. Finally, Victor cursed under his breath. You stay in the car. You don't get out unless I say. And if shooting starts, you hit the floor and you stay down. Understood? Understood. The drive south was tense and silent. Marco drove while Victor made calls in rapid Spanish, his voice getting colder with each conversation. Lena caught words she'd learned. Muerto, sangre, venganza, dead, blood, revenge. The warehouse was in an industrial area that looked abandoned even during the day. At night, it was something out of a nightmare. Dark buildings, broken streetlights, the kind of place where bad things happened and nobody heard you scream. 3 SUVs were already there when they arrived, men with guns standing in defensive positions. They parted when Victor stepped out, their deference immediate and absolute. Stay, Victor told Lena, then looked at Marco. Anything happens to her, won't, Marco said simply. Victor disappeared into the warehouse. Lena sat in the back seat, hands clenched, listening to the muffled sounds of men shouting in multiple languages. Minutes crawled by. Then someone ran out, bent over, and vomited in the street. That's when Lena knew it was bad. She was out of the car before Marco could stop her, pushing past men who tried to block her path, following the smell of blood and gunpowder and death. The warehouse interior was a slaughterhouse. 4 bodies lay in the center of the space, arranged almost artistically. They'd been tortured first. Lena could see that even from the entrance, could see the signs of systematic violence, the kind meant to extract information or send a message or both. Victor stood over them, face blank, hands and fists at his sides. I told you to stay in the car, he said, without turning around. Where are the missing men? We don't know yet. He finally looked at her, and his eyes were empty, flat. The expression of someone who'd shut down everything human to deal with what was in front of him. Go back outside, Lena. You don't need to see this. But she'd already seen it, already cataloged the injuries, the time of death, the way the bodies had been positioned. This wasn't just murder. This was theater. Who did this? She asked quietly. I have theories. Victor's phone rang. He answered, listened, his expression unchanging. Then he ended the call and turned to his men. They found Miguel and Santos, alive, barely. They're at the safe house on Western. He grabbed Lena's hand. Now you're coming with me. The safe house was actually a small clinic run by a doctor who didn't ask questions and didn't report gunshot wounds. They arrived to find controlled chaos, the doctor and 2 nurses working frantically, blood everywhere, machines beeping urgent warnings. How bad? Victor demanded. The doctor looked up, face grim. Miguel might make it. Santos. He shook his head. Hours at most. They worked them over pretty good. Professional interrogation techniques. Whoever did this knew what they were doing. Lena pushed past Victor. Let me see them. Lena, let me see them. Miguel was unconscious, hooked up to machines that were keeping him alive through sheer mechanical determination. Santos was worse, conscious but fading, eyes unfocused, breathing wet and labored. The doctor pulled Lena aside. I've done what I can, but he needs a hospital, real equipment, real surgery. He's not going to make it here. Then we take him to a hospital, Lena said. Can't. Victor had followed them. Hospital means questions. Questions mean police. Police mean exposure we can't afford right now. Lena rounded on him. So you're just going to let him die? I'm going to make sure the bastards who did this die worse. His voice was ice. Santos knew the risks. We all do. He's 23 years old, Victor. He has a mother, a sister. Lena grabbed his arm. Please, let me try. Something flickered across Victor's face. Pain, maybe. Regret. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by that terrible blankness. You have 2 hours, he said. After that, we move him regardless. The people who did this might come back to finish the job. Lena turned to the doctor. I need to assess what we're working with. Full inventory of injuries, what you've already done, what resources we have available. They worked through the night. Lena had treated gunshot wounds before, stab wounds, trauma from car accidents, but this was different, methodical, cruel. Whoever had tortured these men had wanted them to suffer. Miguel stabilized after the first hour. Santos was the problem. Internal bleeding they couldn't stop without surgery, damage to organs that needed specialists. Lena wasn't. She did what she could, packed wounds, ran fluids, kept him breathing. But it wasn't enough. Santos died at dawn, Lena's hands still trying to save him. She stepped back, covered in his blood, and felt something crack inside her chest. She'd lost patients before, part of the job. But this was different. This wasn't disease or accident or bad luck. This was murder, slow and deliberate, and she couldn't fix it. Victor appeared at her side. You did everything you could. It wasn't enough. It never is. He touched her shoulder gently. Come on, let's get you cleaned up. The bathroom was small, utilitarian. Lena washed Santos's blood off her hands and watched it swirl down the drain. In the mirror, she looked like a stranger, pale, hollow-eyed, wearing someone else's death on her clothes. Victor stood in the doorway, watching her. This is what you do, Lena said to his reflection. Every day, you see this, you cause this. Yes. How? Her voice broke. How do you live with it? I tell myself it's necessary, that it's them or me, that the people I kill deserve it because they'd do worse if given the chance. He moved closer. But the truth? I don't live with it. I just keep moving forward because stopping means thinking about it, and thinking about it means drowning. Lena turned to face him. I couldn't save him. I know. He was so young, Victor, just a kid who chose this life, who knew the risks. Victor pulled her against his chest. You can't save everyone, Lena. Not at the hospital, not here. Some people are beyond saving. Is that what you think? That you're beyond saving? He was quiet for a long moment. I used to, before you. They stood like that, holding each other in a blood-spattered bathroom while the sun came up on another day of violence. Finally, Victor pulled back. Miguel's talking, he said. Says he knows who did this. You should hear it. Miguel looked worse in the daylight, face swollen, body broken, but alive. He managed to open one eye when they approached. Boss, he rasped. Sorry, I tried not to talk, but they... I know. Victor's voice was surprisingly gentle. Who were they? Couldn't see faces, but the one asking questions? Miguel coughed, winced. He had an accent, Eastern European, maybe Russian, and he kept asking about you, about your operations, about... His eye found Lena. About her. Ice flooded Lena's veins. Me? Wanted to know everything. Where you lived, where you worked, your routines. Miguel's breathing was labored. I didn't tell them nothing, boss. Neither did Santos. We gave them bullshit, wrong addresses, fake schedules, but they knew we were lying. That's when they... Enough. Victor's hand clenched on the bed rail. You did good, Miguel. You and Santos both. Now rest. We'll handle it from here. Outside the room, Victor pulled out his phone and made a call. When he spoke, his voice was pure menace. I need every piece of information you can find on Eastern European operations in Chicago. Russian, Ukrainian, Georgian, I don't care. Someone came into my territory, killed my people, and asked about someone under my protection. I want names, I want locations, and I want it by tonight. He hung up, turned to Lena. You're not going back to work. We already talked about this. That was before they tortured my men for information about you. His eyes blazed. Before they prove they're willing to do whatever it takes to get to you. You're staying somewhere safe until I end this. End it how? How do you think? No apology in his voice. I find who did this. I kill them. I make an example that ensures nobody ever comes after what's mine again. Victor, no arguments, Lena. Not on this. He caught her face in his hands. I've lost too many people I cared about. I'm not losing you, even if it means starting a war. What if the war finds me anyway? Then I'll burn the whole city down to keep you safe. He said it like a vow, like a threat, like the simple truth. They spent that day at a different safe house, this one more fortress than home. Victor's people came and went with reports, each one making his expression darker. Lena tried to rest but couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Santos dying, saw the warehouse bodies, saw the future stretching out in front of them, painted in blood. Around sunset, Victor's phone buzzed with a text. He read it, jaw tight, then stood. I have to go. Where? To have a conversation with someone who might have answers. He strapped on his gun. Marco stays with you. Do not open this door for anyone except me. How will I know it is you? Victor pulled her close, kissed her hard. Because I'll always come back to you, remember? Then he was gone. The hours that followed were endless. Lena paced, tried to read, tried to distract herself. Marco stood guard, silent and immovable. Around midnight, gunshots echoed from somewhere in the distance. Marco's radio crackled with urgent Spanish. He listened, face impassive, then looked at Lena. Boss is fine, handled the situation. What situation? Better if you don't know. Victor returned 3 hours later, different clothes again, hands clean but eyes haunted. He dismissed Marco with a nod, then pulled Lena into the bedroom and held her without speaking. Did you find them? She asked against his chest. Found something. Russian outfit operating out of the north side. They denied knowing anything about the warehouse, but they were lying. His arms tightened. I made them tell me the truth. And it's worse than I thought. Someone's putting together a coalition, multiple organizations working together to take me down. They see you as my weakness. Think if they can grab you, they can force me to give up territory, power, everything. Lena pulled back to look at him. So what do? We end it before it starts. Victor's expression was carved from stone. I called a meeting tomorrow night. All the major players in Chicago. We're going to settle this the old way. What's the old way? The violent way. He cupped her face. I'm going to walk into a room full of people who want me dead, and I'm going to make them understand that touching you means death, that there's no coalition strong enough, no alliance powerful enough to protect them from what I'll do if they come after what's mine. That sounds like a suicide mission. Probably. He smiled without humor. But what choice do I have? Let them keep coming? Keep looking over my shoulder wondering when they'll strike? No. Better to force the confrontation now on my terms and end it permanently. You could die. I could, but I won't. His certainty was absolute. Because I have too much to live for now. You gave me that, a reason to survive instead of just existing. Lena's throat tightened. What if something goes wrong? What if... Then you take the money I've set aside for you and you run. New city, new name, new life. Marco will help you disappear. I'm not running. Lena. No. She grabbed his shirt. If you're walking into danger, I'm coming with you. And before you argue, think about it. You show up alone, you look weak. You show up with me, you look like someone who has everything to lose. That's scarier. Victor stared at her. You're serious. Completely. They could kill you to hurt me. They could try. Lena's voice hardened. But I'm not some helpless victim, Victor. I've spent 4 years keeping people alive in emergency rooms. I can handle pressure. I can handle fear. And I can damn sure handle watching your back while you handle business. Something shifted in his expression. Pride, fear, love, all of it tangled together. You'll do exactly what I say, he said finally. Stay close. Stay quiet. And if I tell you to run, you run. Deal? Deal. They spent that night making love like it might be their last time. Desperate and tender, fierce and gentle, trying to memorize each other's bodies in case tomorrow took one of them away. After, they lay tangled together, neither sleeping. Tell me about after, Lena said quietly. After? After tomorrow. After you end this. What happens then? Victor was silent for a moment. Then, I want to take you somewhere. Somewhere without guns or blood or people trying to kill us. Maybe Mexico, maybe further. Just us and the ocean and time to be normal for a few weeks. You think we can be normal? No, but I want to try. He kissed her forehead. I want to wake up next to you without wondering if today's the day someone comes for you. I want to take you to dinner without a security detail. I want a life with you that's more than just surviving. I want that too, Lena whispered. Then we survive tomorrow, whatever it takes. The meeting was set for an abandoned factory on the border between territories, neutral ground, or as neutral as anything got in their world. Victor spent the day making preparations, moving pieces on a chessboard Lena could only partially see. She watched him transform. The man who'd held her gently last night became something else, colder, harder, every movement calculated for maximum impact. He dressed in a black suit that probably cost more than her old car, strapped on weapons with the ease of long practice, briefed his team with the precision of a general planning a war. "Remember," he told her as they prepared to leave, "you're there to be seen, not heard. You look beautiful and dangerous and completely unbothered by any of this. Can you do that?" Lena thought about the warehouse bodies, about Santos dying under her hands, about the way Victor's world demanded strength or death. "I can do that," she said. They arrived at the factory with an entourage. Marco and 5 other men, all armed, all ready to die for Victor if necessary. Other cars were already there, other entourages gathering in the shadows. The air tasted like tension and gunpowder. Inside, the factory had been set up for a different kind of meeting. A large table in the center, chairs around it, armed men lining the walls. Every major player in Chicago's underworld was there. Faces Lena had seen on news reports, names she'd heard whispered, people who controlled everything from drugs to politicians. They all went quiet when Victor walked in with Lena on his arm. He told her to look dangerous. So she did. Held her head high, met their stares without flinching, let them see that she wasn't some frightened girl but a woman who'd chosen this world and this man. "Gentlemen," Victor said, his voice cutting through the silence, "we have a problem. Someone in this room decided that my people were acceptable casualties, that the woman I love was an acceptable target. I'm here to explain why that was a mistake." A man at the far end of the table stood, older, silver-haired, expensive suit. Lena recognized him from the news. Anthony Castellano, old-school mafia, controlled the West Side. "With respect, Salazar, you're the one making mistakes. You bring civilians into our world and expect us not to notice, to not see opportunity. This civilian," Victor said softly, dangerously, "is under my protection. Explicitly, absolutely. And anyone who touches her signs their own death warrant." Big words for one man. "I'm not one man. I'm an army. And I've spent the last 24 hours reminding everyone what happens when they forget that." Victor's smile could have frozen blood. "Ask the Russians." "Oh, wait, you can't. They're dead." Murmurs rippled around the table. "You killed Volkov's entire operation?" someone asked. "Down to the last man." No remorse in Victor's voice. "They came after mine. They died. That's how this works. That's how it's always worked. And if anyone else in this room thinks they can do better, they're welcome to try." The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Then someone laughed. A woman this time, seated near the middle. Lena recognized her too. Sofia Reyes ran the South Side distribution networks, rumored to be even more ruthless than Victor. "I like her," Sofia said, nodding at Lena. "She's got spine. Stands here looking at all of us like we're insects she can't be bothered to squash. That's style." "She's off limits," Victor repeated. "All of you. Your people, your allies, your enemies. Everyone gets the message. Lena Carter is mine. Anyone who forgets that joins Volkov." Castellano sat back down slowly. "You're starting a war over a woman." "No." Victor pulled Lena closer. "I'm ending one, right here, right now. This is the only warning any of you get. Touch her, threaten her, even look at her wrong, and I will burn your organizations to the ground. I will kill everyone you've ever cared about. I will make you watch. And then I'll kill you last so you understand exactly what it cost you." The silence that followed was absolute. Finally, Sofia raised her glass. "To Salazar's woman. May she live forever and spare us all." One by one, the others raised their glasses too. Not agreement, not quite. But acknowledgement. Understanding. Fear. Victor had made his point. They left an hour later. The meeting dissolved into uncomfortable small talk and careful positioning. Lena waited until they were in the car, driving away before she let herself shake. "That was terrifying," Victor finished. "I know. You did perfectly." "Did it work? Did they believe you?" "They believed I'm crazy enough to follow through. That's all that matters." He pulled her against his side. "You're safe now. Really safe. Nobody's going to risk what I promised. What about the ones who don't care about consequences? Then I kill them before they get close enough to matter. He said it simply, like discussing the weather. Lena closed her eyes, let herself feel the weight of what had just happened, the violence she'd witnessed, the threats made in her name, the world she'd fully entered by standing next to Victor in that room. No going back now. Not ever. But when Victor kissed her temple, when his arms tightened protectively, when he whispered that he loved her, she realized she didn't want to go back. She wanted this. Wanted him. Wanted the fierce, dangerous, impossible love they'd built in the spaces between gunfire and blood. "Take me home," she said quietly. "Our home or safe house?" "Our home. The penthouse. I want to sleep in our bed and wake up tomorrow knowing this is real." Victor smiled against her hair. "Then that's where we'll go." They drove through Chicago as dawn started to break. Two people who'd survived another night in a world that wanted to destroy them. Behind them, the city woke up slowly, unaware of the violence that had been threatened and prevented, unaware of the love that had been defended. But Lena knew, and Victor knew, and that was enough. For now. The peace lasted exactly 11 days. Lena should have known better, should have recognized that men like Victor didn't get happy endings without fighting for every second of them. But those 11 days had been so good, so normal, that she'd let herself believe the worst was over. They fell into a routine that felt almost domestic. Lena went back to work with minimal security, just Marco in the parking garage, and a panic button Victor had insisted she keep on her keys. Victor handled his business with less bloodshed, more negotiation, like he was trying to prove he could build something instead of just destroying. They had dinner together most nights, talked about her shifts, his deals, the future they were starting to plan. Victor mentioned buying a house outside the city, somewhere with a yard and neighbors who didn't know what he did for a living. Lena talked about maybe going back to school, getting her nurse practitioner license, having options beyond emergency room chaos. It felt real. It felt possible. Then came day 12. Lena was 3 hours into a shift when her supervisor found her. "You have a visitor. Says it's urgent." She expected Victor, maybe Marco with a message. What she got was a woman in her 60s, well-dressed, with eyes that had seen too much. "Lena Carter?" the woman asked. "Yes." "I'm Elena Salazar, Victor's mother." She said it quietly, like she was confessing something. "We need to talk." They found an empty consultation room. Elena sat with the posture of someone who'd learned to carry herself like royalty, even when the kingdom was built on blood. "Victor doesn't know I'm here," Elena said. "He'd be furious if he did. But you deserve to know what you're getting into, really know." Lena's stomach tightened. "I know what Victor does." "Do you?" Elena's smile was sad. "Do you know that his father built this empire by killing everyone who stood in his way? That Victor watched him murder his own brother when Victor was 15? That he learned everything he knows about violence from a man who beat me unconscious twice a month for 20 years? The words hit like punches. "Victor's father died when he was 17, Elena continued. "Enemies finally got to him, and instead of running, instead of taking the out he'd been given, my son stepped into his father's shoes. Became exactly what the old man had been. Maybe worse." She leaned forward. "I loved my husband. I love my son. But loving them nearly destroyed me, and I won't watch it destroy you too." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're the first woman Victor's brought into his life in 10 years. Because when he talks about you, and he does talk, even to me, he sounds like someone who's found something worth protecting." Elena's eyes were wet. "But this life doesn't let you protect anything. It takes and takes until there's nothing left. And I need you to understand that before you go too far down this road." Lena thought about the warehouse bodies, Santos dying, the meeting where Victor had threatened to burn the city down for her. "I'm already too far," she said quietly. "Then you're braver than I was." Elena stood. "Or more foolish. Time will tell which." She pulled out a card, set it on the table. "That's my number. When this life breaks you, and it will, call me. I'll help you put the pieces back together. I've had practice." She left without another word. Lena sat in the empty room staring at the card, trying to process what had just happened. Victor's mother, warning her, offering her an escape route. She should have been grateful, should have seen it as confirmation that she was making a mistake. Instead, all she felt was angry. Her shift ended at 6. Marco was waiting in the garage as always, but this time Lena had him take her to Victor's warehouse instead of home. She found him in his office, going over spreadsheets that probably tracked something illegal, looking tired and beautiful, and hers. "Your mother came to see me," Lena said from the doorway. Victor's head snapped up. "What?" "At the hospital. Told me all about your father, about your childhood, about how this life destroys everyone who touches it." Lena crossed her arms. "Were you ever going to tell me?" Victor set down his pen carefully. "Eventually, when you were ready. I'm ready now." "Lena, tell me," she demanded. "All of it. No more protecting me from the truth. I want to know who you were before you became this." Victor was quiet for a long moment. Then he gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Sit down." She sat. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handed her one, then began. "My father was a monster, not figuratively, literally. He enjoyed hurting people, enjoyed the power it gave him. My mother stayed because leaving meant dying. He made that clear early on." Victor's voice was flat, emotionless. "I learned to be invisible, learned to move through the house like a ghost, learned which beatings to take so she wouldn't have to." Lena's throat tightened. "When I was 15, my uncle tried to take over the business. Said my father was too unstable, too violent, losing control. They had a meeting, private, just the 2 of them." Victor took a drink. "My father called me in afterward, made me help him dispose of the body. Told me that family meant nothing when power was at stake, that trust was weakness, that the only way to survive was to be willing to do what others wouldn't." "Victor, I killed my first man when I was 16, he continued, "one of my father's rivals. He taught me how. Stood there and watched and told me I did good when it was over, like I'd passed a test." His laugh was bitter. "Maybe I had. After that, he started bringing me deeper into the business, training his successor. Then he died. And everyone expected me to fold, expected a 17-year-old kid to run scared." Victor met her eyes. "But I'd spent my whole life learning how to survive monsters. Becoming one myself was easier than I expected." The office was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. "Why are you still doing this?" Lena asked. "You're not 17 anymore. You have money, options. You could walk away." "Could I?" Victor's smile was sharp. "This world doesn't let you retire, Lena. The second you show weakness, someone moves in to take what's yours. I walk away. I'm dead within a week. Everyone I've ever protected dies with me." He paused. "Including you now. So we're trapped. We're committed." He came around the desk, knelt in front of her chair. "I won't lie to you. This life is dangerous, violent, unpredictable. My mother's right about that. But she's wrong about one thing. It doesn't have to destroy you. Not if you're strong enough. Not if we're strong enough together." Lena touched his face. "Your mother thinks I'm going to break. My mother broke because she had no choice. You do. You can leave right now, tonight, and I'll make sure you're protected. Safe. Free." His hand covered hers. "Or you can stay. Build this life with me. Accept the danger, the violence, all of it, and trust that what we have is worth the cost." It wasn't really a choice. Not for Lena. Not anymore. "I'm staying," she said. Victor exhaled like he'd been holding his breath. "Then we do this right. No more secrets. No more protecting you from ugly truths. You're in this world now. You should know how it works." That became their new normal. Victor started including her in more of his business. Not the violence, but the decisions. Explained how territories worked, who owed what to whom, the delicate balance of power that kept Chicago from descending into all-out war. Lena learned quickly, asked smart questions, offered perspectives he hadn't considered. "You're good at this," Victor said one night after a particularly complex negotiation she'd helped strategize. "I'm good at reading people, figuring out what they need, what they'll respond to." Lena smiled slightly. "Turns out managing drug lords isn't that different from managing difficult patients. Except the drug lords are better armed. Debatable. You haven't seen what some nurses can do with a syringe." They were laughing when Marco burst in without knocking, face grim. "We have a problem." The humor drained from the room instantly. Victor stood. "What kind?" "Castellano's dead, shot outside his house 20 minutes ago. His people are saying you ordered it." Victor went very still. "I didn't." I know, but they don't, and they're mobilizing. Marco's jaw tightened. It's going to be war, boss. Real war. Unless we can prove you didn't do this. Who did? Working on it. But whoever it was knew what they were doing. Professional hit. Made to look like your style. Lena watched Victor's expression shift, watched him become the cold, calculating strategist she'd seen at the meeting. Get everyone to the warehouse. All our people. Full weapons. I want defensive positions on every access point. Nobody gets in or out without authorization. What about her? Marco glanced at Lena. She comes with me. I'm not leaving her exposed if Castellano's people decide to retaliate. The drive to the warehouse was tense. Victor made calls, issued orders, his voice sharp and absolute. Lena sat beside him, watching Chicago slide past the windows, understanding that the peace they'd built was shattering. The warehouse was controlled chaos when they arrived. Men with guns everywhere, defensive positions being set up, the air thick with the smell of gun oil and fear. Victor moved through it like a general, adjusting positions, checking weapons, preparing for siege. This is bad, Lena said quietly. This is a setup. Victor was watching the monitors showing camera feeds from around the building. Someone wants us fighting each other, wants to destabilize the entire city. Who benefits? That's the question. He turned to Marco. Any word on who's moving into vacant territories? Anyone making plays they shouldn't? Sofia's expanding into Volkov's old areas, but that was expected after you wiped them out. Marco frowned. There's chatter about someone new, though. Outside player. Nobody knows who. Victor's phone rang. He checked the screen, face hardening. It's Castellano's second. This should be interesting. He answered on speaker. My condolences for your loss. Save it, Salazar. The voice was rough, angry. You killed him. Don't insult me by denying it. I didn't kill Castellano. I had no reason to. We had an understanding. Understanding's dead now. So is he. And you're going to pay for it. Think about this, Victor said, voice hard. If I wanted Castellano dead, he'd have been dead months ago. I don't make moves this sloppy. I don't leave witnesses. And I sure as hell don't break agreements that benefit me just to send a message. Silence on the other end. Someone's playing you, Victor continued. Someone wants us at war. Wants us destroying each other so they can move in and take over. You come after me, you're doing exactly what they want. Prove it. Give me 24 hours. I'll find who really did this and deliver them to you. Then you can decide if starting a war is worth it. Another long pause. 24 hours. But Salazar? If you're lying, if this is a stall, I will burn everything you love to the ground. The line went dead. Victor set down his phone, jaw clenched. 24 hours to find a ghost. Perfect. Where do we start? Lena asked. With the only person smart enough to pull this off. He turned to Marco. Get Sofia Reyes on the phone. Tell her I need a meeting. Tonight. Just the two of us. Marco's eyes widened. Boss, that could be a trap. It's definitely a trap. Question is whether I'm walking into it or setting it. Victor grabbed his coat. Set it up. Neutral location. Somewhere public enough that starting a firefight would be stupid. And her? Marco nodded at Lena. Victor looked at her for a long moment. You stay here. If this goes wrong, I'm coming, Lena interrupted. Absolutely not. You said no more protecting me. You said I'm in this. She moved closer. Sofia liked me, respected me. Maybe having me there keeps this from turning violent. Or maybe having you there gives her leverage she wouldn't have otherwise. Victor, Lena caught his hand. You taught me this world. Taught me how it works. Trust me to use that knowledge. They stared at each other, wills colliding again. Finally, Victor cursed under his breath. Fine, but you stay close. You stay quiet. And if I tell you to run, you run. No arguments. No arguments, Lena agreed. The meeting was set for a restaurant Sofia owned in the financial district. Upscale, expensive, the kind of place where violence would draw immediate police attention. They arrived to find Sofia already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 bodyguards posted nearby. She smiled when she saw them. Victor? And the woman who has you wrapped around her finger. How delightful. Sofia. Victor sat, gestured for Lena to sit beside him. Thanks for meeting on short notice. How could I refuse? You sounded so desperate on the phone. She sipped her wine. Though I have to say, killing Castellano seems out of character for you. Too messy. Too public. I didn't kill him. Of course not. You're here to protest your innocence and beg for my help proving it. Sophia's smile sharpened. What makes you think I believe you? Because you're too smart to believe I'd break the agreement we just made. Because you know starting a war costs everyone except whoever's manipulating us into it. Victor leaned forward. And because if I wanted Castellano dead, I'd have made sure you knew it was me so you'd understand the message. Sophia studied him. You make a compelling argument, but arguments don't solve your problem. Castellano's people want blood. They're going to take it from someone. Help me find who really did this. We deliver them to Castellano's people. Everyone wins except the manipulator. And why would I help you? Because whoever did this won't stop with Castellano. They'll keep killing, keep destabilizing, until we're all too weak to stop them from taking over. Victor's voice went cold. You want to be next? Want to wonder if every car that passes might have a sniper? Want to watch your empire crumble because you were too proud to work with me? Sophia's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Calculation. Understanding. I may have heard something, she said finally. Rumors about an outsider, someone from the East Coast with ambitions of expanding. They've been quiet, careful, but money's been moving in ways that don't make sense. Name? Dmitry Morozov. Russian mob, but American-born. Runs operations in Boston and New York. She paused. He approached me 3 weeks ago, offered partnership. I declined. Why? Because I don't trust people who appear from nowhere offering deals too good to be true. Sophia set down her wine. He wanted access to my distribution networks. Said he could double my profits within 6 months. When I asked how, he got vague. Said he had ways of removing competition. Victor's jaw clenched. He's been planning this. Apparently, and if I'm right, Castellano wasn't the only target. He's probably setting up multiple hits, making it look like we're all turning on each other. Why? Because chaos creates opportunity. We fight, we weaken ourselves, he moves in and picks up the pieces. Sophia leaned back. It's actually quite clever, almost elegant. Where is he? That I don't know. He contacts people, they don't contact him. She pulled out her phone, forwarded something to Victor. But that's the number he used. Maybe your people can trace it. Victor checked his phone, nodded. This helps. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You still have to catch him and prove he killed Castellano, and you have... She checked her watch. 22 hours to do it. They left the restaurant with a lead, but not much else. In the car, Victor was already on the phone with his tech people, having them trace the number Sophia provided. Lena watched him work, saw the wheels turning, the strategy forming. What happens if we can't find him in time, she asked when he hung up. Then Castellano's people come for us and we defend ourselves. People die. War starts. The city tears itself apart. Victor's hand found hers. So we find him. They spent the night at the warehouse, Victor coordinating his people while Lena tried to be useful. Around 3 a.m., one of his tech guys got a hit. The number had pinged off a cell tower in the north side near the waterfront. Warehouse district, Victor said, studying the map. Easy to hide, easy to defend, smart. What's the play? Marco asked. We go in quiet. Scout first, verify he's there. Then we grab him and deliver him to Castellano's people with enough evidence to prove he ordered the hit. And if he doesn't cooperate? Victor's smile was cold. Then we make him cooperate. Oh, they moved out at dawn. Victor, Marco, and 6 others. Lena stayed behind despite arguing to come. Victor's refusal absolute this time. This is the dangerous part, he'd said. The part where bullets fly and people die. I need you here, safe. Because if something goes wrong, someone needs to survive to tell the story. Nothing's going wrong, Lena had insisted. Promise me. He'd gripped her shoulders. Promise me that if I don't come back, you'll run. Take the money, take the escape route I showed you, and get out of this city. Victor, promise me, Lena. So she'd promised, hating every word. Now she paced the warehouse office, checking her watch every 30 seconds, trying not to imagine every terrible outcome. The men Victor had left behind were professional, silent, giving her space while staying alert. Her phone buzzed. Text from Victor. Found him. Going in. That was 20 minutes ago. Lena stared at her phone, willing it to buzz again, to tell her everything was fine. The silence stretched. 30 minutes. 45. An hour. Then gunfire. Distant but unmistakable. The guards' radios erupted with chatter. Lena caught fragments. Shots fired. Multiple hostiles. Boss is pinned before one of them shut it off, clearly ordered not to let her hear. "What's happening?" she demanded. "Situation's under control, ma'am." "Bullshit. What's happening?" The guard's face was stone. "Boss's orders were to keep you here and keep you safe. That's what we're doing." Lena wanted to scream, wanted to grab a gun and run toward the gunfire, wanted to do anything except stand here helpless while Victor fought for his life. More radio chatter. The guards exchanged looks. "What?" Lena asked. "What is it?" "Boss is requesting medical support at his location. Says he's got wounded." Lena was moving before they could stop her. "Where? Give me the address." "Ma'am, you need to—" "I'm a trauma nurse and Victor needs medical support. Either give me the address or get out of my way." The guards looked at each other. Finally, one of them grabbed keys. "I'll drive. But if the boss kills me for this, I'm haunting you." The warehouse was chaos when they arrived. Bodies on the ground, some moving, some not. Smoke from gunfire, the acrid smell of blood and cordite. Victor was on his feet, suit jacket torn, blood on his face, barking orders at his men. He saw Lena and his expression went from tactical to furious in a heartbeat. "What the hell are you doing here?" "You called for medical support." She was already moving to the nearest wounded man, assessing injuries with practiced efficiency. "I'm medical support." "Lena." Argument later. Work now. She looked up at him. "How many wounded?" Victor's jaw clenched. Then he accepted it, shifted back to practical. "3 of ours. 2 of his. And Morozov himself. He took a round in the leg when he tried to run." "Where is he?" "Marco's got him contained. We need to move fast. Police will be here soon." Lena worked quickly, triaging injuries, stabilizing the worst cases. 2 of Victor's men needed hospitals but would survive. The third had caught a bullet in the shoulder, painful but manageable. Morozov was cursing in Russian, his leg bleeding but not life-threatening. "You talk yet?" Victor asked Marco. "Not saying anything except that we're all dead." Victor crouched in front of Morozov. "You set up Castellano's hit. You have proof of that somewhere, communications, payments, something. Tell me where it is and maybe you live through the next hour." Morozov spit blood. "You think Castellano's people will believe you? They want someone to pay. You're convenient." "Maybe, but I'll have you to give them, along with whatever evidence proves you did this." Victor's voice went colder. "Last chance. Where's the proof?" "My phone. Encrypted app. Password is—" He rattled off numbers. Marco grabbed the phone, worked through the encryption. "Got it. Messages, payment records, the whole setup." "Good." Victor stood. "Get him on his feet. We're taking him to Castellano's people as promised." They moved Morozov and the evidence to neutral ground, a parking garage where Castellano's people were waiting. The handoff was tense, weapons drawn on both sides, but the evidence spoke for itself. Messages showing Morozov had hired the shooter. Payments proving he'd funded the hit. Everything Castellano's people needed. "This settles it," Victor said. "No war, no retaliation. We were all played." Castellano's second looked at Morozov, face hard. "What happens to him is our business now." "He's all yours." Victor stepped back. "Do what you want." They didn't make it quick. Lena looked away. The drive back to the warehouse was silent. Victor's face was unreadable, jaw tight, knuckles white on the steering wheel. When they finally made it inside, he turned to Lena. "You promised to stay put. You needed help. I needed you safe." "I am safe." Lena's voice rose to match his. "I'm here. I'm fine. And those men are alive because I showed up. You could have been killed. Do you understand that? Bullets were flying. Morozov's people were shooting at anything that moved. You could have—" His voice cracked. "I can't lose you, Lena. I can't." She crossed to him, pulled him into her arms. You didn't lose me. I'm right here. Victor held her so tight she could barely breathe, face buried in her hair. Don't do that again, please. I can handle anything except the thought of you getting hurt because of my world. Then we make your world safer. Lena pulled back to look at him. Together. No more separating what I can handle from what you think I should handle. We're in this together, remember? He studied her face for a long moment, then slowly nodded. Together. Together, Lena echoed. They stood like that in the middle of the warehouse, holding each other, two people who'd survived another night of violence. Outside, Chicago kept moving, unaware of how close it had come to tearing itself apart, unaware of the man and woman who'd stopped it. But they knew. And that was enough. 6 months after the Morozov incident, Lena woke up in a hotel room in Cancun with Victor's arm draped across her waist and sunlight streaming through gauzy curtains. For a moment, she just lay there, listening to him breathe, trying to remember the last time either of them had slept past dawn. They'd finally taken that trip he'd promised. 2 weeks away from Chicago, away from the warehouses and the violence and the constant weight of watching their backs. Just them and the ocean and the kind of peace that felt almost fictional. Victor stirred, pulled her closer. You're thinking too loud. I'm thinking we have 3 more days before reality hits again. Don't remind me. He kissed her shoulder. I've gotten used to not wearing a gun to breakfast. You wore one yesterday. Old habits. He rolled onto his back, stared at the ceiling. Marco called while you were in the shower. Everything's quiet back home. Sophia's keeping the peace. No major conflicts. Almost boring. Boring sounds nice. Boring sounds like the calm before a storm. Lena propped herself up on one elbow. Can you just enjoy this? Just for 3 more days? Victor looked at her, face softening. Yeah, I can do that. They spent the morning on the beach, afternoon exploring the town, evening having dinner at a restaurant where nobody knew Victor's name or cared what he did for a living. It was the kind of normal Lena had stopped believing they could have. That night, lying in bed with the windows open and ocean sounds drifting in, Victor said, I've been thinking about getting out. Lena went very still. Out of what? The business. The whole thing. He turned to face her. Not immediately, not recklessly, but gradually. Transitioning power, moving assets into legitimate operations, stepping back from the violence. Victor, people don't just leave your world. You said so yourself. I know what I said, but that was before. His hand found hers, before I had a reason to want something different, before I understood what I was asking you to sacrifice by staying in it. I chose this. I chose you. You chose who you thought I was, who I wanted to be for you. But the truth is, I'm still the man who kills people when it serves his purpose, who builds his empire on fear and blood. And every day you stay with me, you become more like that too. His voice went rough. I've seen it, Lena. The way you don't flinch anymore when I come home with blood on my clothes. The way you've started thinking in terms of territory and leverage. You're changing because of me. And I don't know if that's fair. Lena sat up, pulled the sheet around herself. You think I haven't noticed? You think I don't know that I'm different now? That's my point. I'm not finished. Her voice was sharp. Yes, I've changed. Yes, I see the world differently now. But that's not just you. That's me choosing to understand the reality I'm living in instead of pretending I can keep 1 foot in normal and 1 foot in your world. She met his eyes. You want to know what's not fair? What's not fair is you deciding what I can handle, what I should want, what's good for me. Victor sat up too. I'm trying to protect you. I don't need protection from you. I need you to trust that I know what I'm doing, that I'm strong enough to make my own choices. Her hands were shaking. If you want out of the business because you want out, fine. We'll figure it out. But don't do it because you think I'm too fragile to handle who you are. Because that's bullshit, and we both know it. They stared at each other in the dim light, the ocean sound suddenly too loud. You're right, Victor said finally. You are strong enough. Stronger than I gave you credit for. He touched her face. But that doesn't mean I don't want better for you, for us. Better how? A life where we don't sleep with guns under the pillow, where you don't have to worry about someone using you to get to me. Where we can have kids someday without wondering if they'll be targets before they're old enough to understand why. He paused. I want to build something with you, Lena. Not just survive. Actually build. The word kids hit Lena like a physical thing. They'd never talked about that. Never let themselves imagine a future that permanent. Kids, she repeated. Maybe. Someday. If you wanted. Victor looked almost vulnerable. Is that crazy? Completely. Lena's eyes stung. But I want it too. They held each other as the night deepened around them, two people who'd found something impossible in the middle of chaos. When they finally made love, it was different, slower, more deliberate, like they were making promises their bodies could keep even if their words couldn't. Afterward, Victor said, I'm serious about getting out. It'll take time. Maybe years. But I'm going to do it. How? Carefully. I start delegating more. Bring in people I trust to handle day-to-day operations. Move money into legitimate businesses. Create distance between myself and the violence. He traced patterns on her skin. Marco's ready to take over more responsibility. Sophia and I have been talking about consolidating territories, reducing conflict. It's possible. Difficult, but possible. And if someone decides you're weak, decides to take what's yours, then I remind them why that's a bad idea. But eventually, if I do this right, there won't be anything left to take except businesses that run themselves and assets too complicated to seize. His arm tightened around her. I can't promise it'll be smooth. Can't promise there won't be violence along the way. But I can promise I'm going to try. For you. For us. For the life we could have. Lena closed her eyes, let herself believe it was possible. They came back to Chicago to find things had shifted. Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious, but the balance of power had changed in small ways during their absence. Sophia had expanded into another territory with minimal resistance. Castellano's old organization had fractured, different factions claiming pieces. The city was reorganizing itself. Good, Victor said when Marco briefed him. Means people are focused on their own problems instead of creating mine. There's something else, Marco said carefully. Hospital called. They want to talk to you about a donation. Lena looked up from unpacking. What kind of donation? The kind that comes with strings. They want to build a new trauma center, state-of-the-art, but they need funding and political support to push it through. Marco glanced at Victor. Someone suggested you might be interested. Who suggested it? Your mother. Victor's jaw tightened. Of course she did. Elena had been persistent since her first visit to Lena. Called occasionally, always polite, always probing to see if Lena was okay. She'd apologized for the ambush, explained she'd been trying to protect someone she saw as collateral damage in her son's war. Lena had forgiven her, mostly, understanding that Elena's warnings came from love, not malice. What do you think? Victor asked Lena. I think a new trauma center would save lives. I also think using your money to fund it means people asking questions about where that money came from. Let them ask. I have lawyers for that. Victor pulled out his phone. Set up a meeting with the hospital board. Tell them I'm interested, but I have conditions. The meeting happened 3 days later. Victor wore his most expensive suit, brought his most legitimate lawyer, and presented himself as a successful businessman interested in giving back to the community. The hospital board bought it, or pretended to, because money talked louder than suspicion. We want the trauma center to serve the South Side specifically, Victor said. The neighborhoods that get ignored. The people who can't afford private care. That's admirable, the board chair said carefully. But those areas don't generate revenue. We'd need significant ongoing funding to ispat. I'll provide it. Initial construction, equipment, and an endowment to cover operating costs for the first 5 years. Victor slid a folder across the table. Here's what I'm offering. In exchange, I want Lena Carter appointed as the trauma center's medical director once she completes her nurse practitioner certification. Every eye in the room turned to Lena. That's highly irregular, someone said. So is a $10 million donation with no expectation of naming rights or public recognition. Victor's smile didn't reach his eyes. I'm not asking for a board seat, not asking for control. Just asking that someone who actually understands emergency medicine gets to run the department. If that's a problem, I can take my money elsewhere. It wasn't a problem. They left the meeting with a handshake agreement and the beginnings of something that felt almost legitimate. In the car, Lena turned to Victor. $10 million? Small price for making sure you have something that's yours. Something I can't touch or ruin. He caught her hand. You'll be brilliant at it. I haven't even applied to NP school yet. You will, and you'll get in. And 2 years from now, you'll be running a trauma center that saves lives instead of just keeping people alive long enough to die somewhere else. His certainty was absolute. This is how we build, Lena. This is what better looks like. She wanted to argue that it wasn't that simple, that you couldn't just buy redemption with blood money, that building something good didn't erase the bad. But maybe it didn't have to erase it. Maybe it just had to be enough to tip the scales. Lena applied to 3 nurse practitioner programs and got into all of them. She chose the one with the best trauma specialization, started classes while still working full-time at the hospital. It was brutal. 12-hour shifts followed by studying until 2 a.m., clinical rotations on her days off, exams that made her question everything. Victor supported her through all of it, helped her study, made sure she ate, handled the parts of his business that used to require her input so she could focus on school. He was changing too, slowly but visibly, delegating more, attending fewer meetings that ended in violence, investing in legitimate businesses with the same ruthless efficiency he'd once applied to criminal enterprises. How's it going? Lena asked one night, finding him in his office staring at spreadsheets. Slower than I'd like, faster than I expected. He rubbed his eyes. Marco's taking over the distribution networks. I'm moving my money into real estate development. Not as exciting as running an empire, but significantly less likely to get me killed. Any pushback? Some. There's always someone who thinks transition means weakness, but Sophia's been helpful. She's consolidating power on her side, which means fewer players fighting over scraps. He looked up at her. It's working, Lena. Slowly. But it's working. She crossed to him, wrapped her arms around his shoulders from behind. I'm proud of you. Don't be proud yet. I've still got blood on my hands that won't wash off. Maybe not, but you're trying to make sure there's less blood tomorrow than there was yesterday. That counts for something. It counted for more than Lena had expected. Over the next year, Victor's world shifted from criminal empire to something that looked almost legitimate from the outside. He still had connections, still had power, still had the capacity for violence when necessary. But it became the exception instead of the rule. Marco ran the operations that couldn't be legitimized, handling them with the same ruthless competence Victor had once applied. Sophia expanded her territory and influence, becoming the dominant force in Chicago's underworld while Victor faded into the background. Other players moved in to fill the vacuum, fought over scraps, established new hierarchies. And Victor let them. Doesn't it bother you? Lena asked one night, watching other people take what used to be yours? No, he said it simply. Because what I have now is better. I have you. I have a future that doesn't end in prison or a grave. I have the chance to be something besides the monster my father made me. He pulled her close. They can have the territory. I'll take the life. Lena finished her NP program with honors. The trauma center broke ground 6 months later, a massive construction project in a neighborhood that desperately needed it. Victor stayed behind the scenes, but his fingerprints were all over it. The location, the design, the staffing decisions. This is really happening, Lena said, standing at the construction site with Victor on a cold November morning. Did you doubt it? Maybe a little. She watched workers pour concrete. Feels too good to be real, like we're getting away with something. We are getting away with something. We're building a life that shouldn't be possible for people like us. Victor's arm came around her shoulders. You're supposed to either die young or live long enough to become the villain. We're trying to find a third option. Think we'll manage it? Ask me in 10 years. The trauma center opened 18 months later, state-of-the-art facility serving a community that had been medically underserved for generations. Lena walked through it the day before the official opening, touching equipment that had only existed in her dreams, seeing exam rooms and operating theaters that would save countless lives. Victor found her in what would be her office, staring out the window at the neighborhood she'd be serving. You did this, he said. We did this, Lena corrected. No, you inspired it. I just wrote the check. He moved to stand beside her. I've killed a lot of people, Lena. More than you know. More than I'll ever tell you. And I can't undo that, can't make it right. But this, he gestured at the center, this saves lives. Hundreds, maybe thousands over the years. And maybe that doesn't balance the scales. But it's something. Lena took his hand. It's more than something. It's everything. The opening ceremony was small, deliberately low-key. City officials came because they had to, praised the facility and the donation while carefully not asking where the money came from. Elena was there too, watching her son with something that looked like pride mixed with sadness. She found Lena afterward. "You've changed him. I didn't think anyone could." "He changed himself. I just gave him a reason." "That's not how he sees it. To him, you're the reason he's still alive, the reason he wanted to be better." Elena's eyes were wet. "Thank you for loving my son, for seeing past what he became to who he could still be." "He's easy to love," Lena said quietly, "even with the scars." "Especially with the scars," Elena smiled. "Those are proof he survived." The center's first week was chaos. More patients than they'd anticipated, more trauma than Lena had seen even in her years at Chicago Memorial. But the equipment held, the staff performed, lives were saved that would have been lost. Lena came home exhausted every night, exhilarated by the work, drained by the responsibility. Victor was there every time, with food and patience and the understanding of someone who knew what it meant to carry other people's lives on your shoulders. "Tell me about your day," he'd say, and she would. Would tell him about the gunshot victim who made it despite odds, the car accident survivor who walked out after surgery, the kid with appendicitis caught just in time. And he'd listen like every word mattered, like her victories were his victories, like saving lives balanced out the ones he'd taken. 3 months after the center opened, Victor proposed. Not in some grand public gesture, just the two of them in the penthouse on a random Tuesday night, Lena half asleep on the couch after a double shift. "Marry me," he said. She thought she'd misheard. "What?" "Marry me. I know it's complicated. I know my world makes everything messy. But I want you to be my wife. Want to build this life officially, legally, permanently." He pulled out a ring, simple, elegant, expensive. "I'm not a good man, Lena. We both know that. But I'm a better man with you. And I want to spend whatever time I have left trying to deserve you." Lena stared at the ring, at Victor's face, at the life they'd built from violence and desperation and impossible love. "Yes," she said. They got married 6 weeks later. Small ceremony, immediate family only, Elena, Marco, Sophia as witnesses, a judge who didn't ask questions. No press, no publicity, no announcement. Just two people making promises in a courthouse that they'd already been keeping for 2 years. That night, lying in bed as husband and wife, Victor said, "I never thought I'd have this. Never let myself imagine it." "What changed?" "You fell into my arms and asked me to hold you. And for the first time in 20 years, I felt human instead of just dangerous." He pulled her closer. "You saved my life that night, not from dying, from living wrong." "We saved each other," Lena said. And maybe that was the truth. Not some romantic fiction about love conquering all. Not some lie about two broken people becoming whole. Just the simple reality that they'd found each other when they needed it most, and they'd fought like hell to keep what they'd built. The months became years. Victor continued transitioning out of the criminal world, his empire slowly converting into legitimate holdings. Real estate, investments, businesses that operated in daylight. He'd never be completely clean. Too many connections, too much history, too many people who remembered what he'd been. But he was trying, and trying counted. Lena ran the trauma center with the same fierce competence she'd brought to every emergency room she'd ever worked. Saved lives, trained residents, built a reputation for excellence that had nothing to do with how the center was funded and everything to do with how she ran it. They fought sometimes. About his past catching up to them. About her working too much. About the life they'd chosen and the prices they still paid. But they always came back to each other, always found their way through the anger to the love underneath. 5 years after that night in the hospital waiting room, Lena came home to find Victor in the nursery they'd been slowly preparing. He was standing by the window, hands in his pockets, staring out at the city. "You okay?" she asked. Marco retired today. Officially. Handed over operations to his second and walked away. Victor turned to face her. He told me he learned from the best, that I showed him it was possible to leave. That's good, right? It's terrifying. It means I actually did it. I got out. I built something legitimate enough that the people who depended on me could transition too. He crossed to her. It means this is real. All of it. The center, the life, the future we planned. It's actually happening. Lena took his hands. Did you doubt it would? Every single day. He smiled slightly. But you never did. You believed we could do this even when I didn't. You believed in me when I was still figuring out how to believe in myself. Someone very smart once told me that you're only beyond saving if you stop trying. You never stop trying. Because you were worth trying for. Victor's hand moved to her stomach, where new life was just starting to show. Both of you. They stood like that as the sun set over Chicago, two people who'd survived everything the city threw at them, who'd built a life from blood and violence and transformed it into something worth having, who'd loved each other through the worst and come out the other side not perfect, but whole. Later that night, Lena would go back to the trauma center for a late shift, would save 3 lives before dawn, would come home exhausted and fall asleep against Victor's chest while he played with her hair and promised her tomorrow would be better. And Victor would lie awake after she slept, thinking about the man he'd been and the man he was becoming, about the blood on his hands that would never wash clean and the life in Lena's belly that proved redemption was possible even for monsters, about the fact that somewhere along the way he'd stopped surviving and started living. That was the trick, he realized. The secret nobody talked about. You couldn't erase your past, couldn't undo the damage or take back the violence, but you could choose what you built with the time you had left, could choose who you wanted to become instead of staying trapped by who you'd been. It wasn't redemption exactly. Wasn't forgiveness or absolution or any clean answer. It was just 2 broken people choosing each other every day, building something good in the ruins of what they'd been, finding love in a world that had tried to teach them only violence. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. Outside, Chicago hummed with its usual chaos. Ambulances screaming toward the trauma center that bore no name but saved hundreds of lives. Deals being made in shadows. People surviving in a city that demanded constant adaptation. The same city where a young nurse had collapsed from exhaustion and a dangerous man had caught her. Where a single moment of vulnerability had sparked something neither of them expected. The city hadn't changed. But they had. And in changing, they'd proved that even in the darkest places, even with the bloodiest hands, it was possible to find something worth fighting for, something worth protecting, something worth building a life around. Not perfect, never perfect, but real and fierce and theirs. And in the end, that was the only redemption that mattered.